Aye.
Short Bus Debate Club. It's a bus rolling.
I can get on board. Hello, I'm Darren Jolly.
It's time to get this short bus started. So let's roll and on with the show. Welcome to part 2 of Short Bus Debate Club. Who is Robin Who? I'm Brian Courtney.
Yeah, I'm Darren Jolly-ish. I'm Darren Jolly-ish.
So toward the end of the last session, we were talking about, the state being in bed with the banks, and maybe if the post office can do something to cure our ills.
I think cure is tough, but at least to drive a certain dialectic to the front. That would be the way that I would. Being the asshole that I am,
That's fair. I mean, I was just trying to recap it as quickly as possible.
I just don't like a person improperly recharacterizing my thoughts, motherfucker.
Sorry, my bad.
You're not sorry at all.
So there's a lot of stuff. I mean, again, bank robbery has been happening for a long time, or I should just say robbery. Banks and lenders fucking people over has been happening just as long, if not longer. We mentioned the Great Depression and the basically, I don't know, half a decade of robberies that happened after that, which they called the Public Enemy era, I think. But that stock market crash that happened, legislation was put into effect after that to ensure nothing like that ever happened again.
The Glass Deal.
Yes. Yeah. So they said, this is an investment bank, this is a commercial bank, and never shall they intersect. We're keeping people's money safe here unless you want to gamble with it, and then you put your money here. For some reason, we could speculate on a number of those reasons, but they basically made that act ineffective, and now they're doing everything under one roof again. So that's what happened in 2008.
And it's not even just that they're just doing it under one roof. It's that the positions are being consolidated on an unprecedented level. Like the financial ones. So like there were the ones that went under, right? But then there were the ones that through the bailouts that got consolidated into those positions. The Silicon Valley Bank. So the one that I was talking about that bought it real quick here. Yabber for a minute, and let me find something real quick.
Okay, I'm just gonna talk and anyways, so it is essentially happening under one roof, but I think what he's getting at is the fact that so the government comes in and bails said bank out, and then in order to recoup some of their expenses on bailing someone out, they sell those assets to another financial institution, and then the cycle can start all over again at an institution under another name.
But yeah, it's like bubble structures at this point in time. But we'll get in that a little bit. First Citizens was the name of the company that bought Silicon Valley Bank, but there are 20 banks over the course of the last since 2008 time period that since those initial bailouts. So in the wake of that, where these banks get into trouble, the government swoops in. Silicon Valley Bank was just a particularly interesting one because the numbers were so high relative to a lot of things, and also because there were giant Silicon Valley production positions that were tied to the bank, which made it, again, where they would be holding $1.3 billion in their depositor positions. But yes, everything, yeah, the cross-pollinating to where savings and investment and all that kind of shit gets put in the same place, but where you might have had competition in the past where you'd have 150, whatever. I don't know what the number would be. A lot of fucking banks that would be out there, bigger banks, but now, the way that the bailout played in together, giant financial institutions getting consolidated in other giant financial institutions. It's funny to even think about the concept of too big to fail as like a meaningful way of, if an institution is effectively too big to fail, then it shouldn't be a private institution anymore. I'm sorry, I know that you don't agree with what I just said with regards to that, but
Well, it's not.
it's a public
What I would say is that if it's too big to fail, then one, it shouldn't fucking fail. And
Would
two,
they be smart enough to not allow it to get fucked up?
Right. If the government is going to bail you out, then certain considerations have to be made. No fucking bonuses, no golden parachutes, no shit like that. But also, at that point, again, instead of reselling those assets to another institution that may or may not do the same thing again
at a discounted and bailed out rate, yes,
then maybe yes, the government says, hey, let's be this bank. This is the United, but then I think maybe the United States is worried that they'll put these other banks out of business. I don't know.
No matter what, though, like your initial comment about considerations, right? Like if you're going to allow for this to happen and for the bailout to be played into, there should be certain, yeah, I mean, at the very least, on the day that Silicon Valley Bank, on the day that earlier in the day before the government came in and took them out, they paid their bonuses that day. This is a matter of public record. This is not up for debate. This is a fact.
Right.
So how in the fuck, I mean, but again, like we're not even on the playing field. Like we can't even say no, that's bullshit. We're gonna take over the fucking government if you guys don't stop doing shit like that.
Well, and I'm not one of those people that fucking, shakes my fucking, I do shake my finger, but not about this particular subject. I'm not one of those people that says, oh, well, you can't pay your CEO this much money. You can't give them this much in bonuses. You can't do this because it's your fucking money. You can do whatever you want with it. But
I'll argue with you on that point at another point in
time. If you're doing it and asking for tax money to save you, then you can't do it.
Yeah. Well, that's so. Yeah, any number of considerations. Like, we'll give you X amount of dollars to right the ship, but you have to pay that money back. Or something.
Right. Well, we went over all of that shit when we did the episode that was just on. I think that was the corporate welfare episode, and we went through how much money was actually paid back, and it wasn't a lot.
No, nothing relative to what
not compared to what we paid out. So I mean, yeah, I get it.
You want to know something else funny about the Silicon Valley Bank one? This Ken Klippenstein and this guy Dan Boguslaw, they did some looking into this. There was a rhetorical disposition that was pushed forward that it was a national security issue. If we didn't do that, then it was going to affect the U.S.'s national security.
And that's because of somebody doing a cybersecurity firm who had a lot of high-profile clients or something along those lines.
No, you're being way too rational right now. They literally were suggesting that like somebody was manipulating things on the internet through Twitter to instigate a bank run, and that's why the money was coming out, despite the fact that there were emails internal in Silicon Valley Bank as early as the middle of February that were saying we're leveraged a little bit. The interest rates are going up too quick. We're leveraged too much on these long-term bonds. We're going to get our assets handed to us if we don't start trying to find a way to sort of like hedge in a different direction in relation to this stuff. They knew that there were problems, and then there were all these internal communications. So there were some things that were going on through emails and on Twitter between people that were the high-end depositors in the bank and people that were at the top of the bank that started messing with shares and pulling money out. But that wasn't a bank run writ large by everybody that was involved in it. The only people that were pulling their money out were the people that were at the top end that knew that they had fucked up with the way that they had conducted their banking operations.
Right.
But at the same time, you still got to see the guys, Warren, like he's a senator. He sits on the one of the big banking committees in the Senate, and he's like, this was a national security issue, and he has huge ties to Silicon Valley Bank. There was all these articles that I found where he had received a ton of donations from them in the past, and he says, I'll give all that money back. Well, motherfucker, it's a little bit late. You've already, the hand is tipped. Your conflict of interest in relation to this. So making an argument on behalf of them and their bailout in the name of national security is bullshit at the best. So I'm sorry. Carry on.
No, I was just sitting here thinking, the donations, those are transparent, so we can always chase them down for that.
Not entirely. Not if it comes through those black spaces.
Like PACs, super PACs.
Yeah.
No, I get that, but I'm talking about the ones that were just, made, okay, Silicon Valley, paid to the order of Warren, whatever the fuck his name is.
Mark Warner, I'm sorry. Fuck you.
But there's money that's never transparent that we don't see. And I'm not saying every politician is dirty. I'm saying
it's a matter of degrees.
Most of them are.
It's a matter of degrees, yeah. There are some that are a lot better than others, and there are some that are infinitely worse. But Nancy Pelosi, she's the cleanest politician in the history of the world.
Yeah, she is. But there's that money that is paid under the table, because the $200,000 a plate dinner that they hold, in the back room, somebody's handing them an additional $2 million just to make sure they get that yes vote, or they get that bailout, or they get their drilling rights, or
any version of pay to play.
Yeah. And that's not a good thing. But again, I think if we had to measure it out, at least dollars to dollars, I would say that banks rip people off more than they get ripped off. And that would be probably if you went all the way back to the beginning of banks. I don't know that for a fact. That would take some more digging. But
then the nature of money suggests that because if you're going to have money, you have to have faith in that money, which means that the institutions that create the faith that allow that to exist in the first, which is going to imply some dirty games to try to maintain those positions.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that. And again, at the beginning of the first half, I talked about mediums of exchange as opposed to cash, currency, whatever. Here in the United States, in, I don't know, probably starting in, say, 1840 and ending in 1914. But the majority of it was like 50 to probably 80, something like that, 1850 to 1880. We had 1,600 banks had approval to print their own currency, and there were over 7,000 different currencies available within the United States. That, in conjunction with a lot of like mining outfits, were printing up their own coins and shit. So we didn't have a national currency up until 1914. I mean, there was a national currency, but the Civil War.
There was a concept of a national currency.
Right. Well, I mean, because when we first started here, we were using English, Spanish, and French money. So we didn't have our own money then. But, like, I mean, fucking 7,000 different currencies being moved around. And, you know, the Southern dollar wasn't worth much in the North, and vice versa during the Civil War. And, so there were some different things happening. So it just kind of makes me laugh. And now, and I'm using this term ironically, but now we are the gold standard.
If you don't globally, if you don't announce the irony, if you just sort of like throw the irony in the middle of the comment.
We're the Short Bus Debate Club, though. So I wanted to make sure that everyone on the short bus, including.
Well, I just figured that if you were going to explain that the irony was coming, if I explained to you the function of the irony in the first place,
yes,
we might be operating on multiple levels of irony at that point in time.
That's very ironic.
So we should get Alanis Morissette on the show next time. Didn't she have some song called Ironic?
I think she did. I think it actually started off, isn't it ironic? Don't you say? See?
I don't know that I've ever even recall listening to an entire Alanis Morissette song.
It was a horrible fucking album. Horrible. So, again, I don't know whether or not people are robbing banks more than banks are robbing people. Again, I have my suspicions. I would say that even if more people are robbing banks, that banks are making more off of robbing fewer people.
Well, because they're making money off of people robbing banks.
Yes.
Because as long as it's circulating, their fees are coming into play. You got to wash that money somehow or another. Once you start moving everything around, as long as you don't write a book about it afterwards, you should be fine.
Are you gonna wait to talk about the book until?
What book?
The one that the guy wrote.
I don't even know what the name of the book was. There was a bank that was robbed in the south of France. It was a very famous bank in Europe. They held tons and tons of jewels and money and precious metals in this place. And these guys, they went into these underground areas. I still can't remember what the fucking name. What's the name of What's the name of a city in the south of France?
I don't know. I said Monte Carlo. Is Marseille in the?
Marseille is where it was at. That's right.
Okay.
Very good. You did a fine job.
Thank you.
No, it isn't Marseille. Marseille's the thing in the middle of it that's the big. Keep talking for a second. So they robbed the. So they went in this underground space and they had to pipe all this gas down underneath because it was like the biggest vault in the world at that point in time. they had to pipe oxygen in down there while they were doing it.
Okay, so it's Monaco, Marseille,
It's got to be Marseille.
Montpellier.
Nice. It was in Nice. That was where it was. It was in Nice. I was fucking up. It was in Nice.
That's nice.
No, it's Nice. Actually.
No, that's nice.
Good talk. So the douchebag that was at the head of the group, and they totally got everything out of there, and somehow or another there was something that was like blocking the door. So when all of these people came in at the beginning of the day to try to gain access to the shit that was in the vault, they couldn't get the vault open. So they contacted the company that created the vault, and they couldn't get it figured out. So they actually had to cut out a hole in the side of it so they could see what was going on at the door, and they could see that like all these fucking safety deposit boxes had been busted open all over the place. And the motherfucker got away with it for 40 years until he wrote a book anonymously about it and got busted for it. And as Brian pointed out when we were talking about it, generally one would assume that there were certain statute of limitations issues at 40 years, but something to do with the way that they had laundered the money over state lines or something like that put them in a position to where he ended up getting prosecuted for it and got fucked up.
Well, and you're dealing with an entirely different thing. And now that we're talking about it again, I want to look it up because not knowing what Interpol was really bothering me. I know, is it international police?
Yeah, you're gonna have to figure that out all on your own.
Fuck, I tried to pull it up and Google searched interpolation instead.
Albert.
International Criminal Police Organization. Okay.
Albert Spagliar was the one that did it. When did he? Come on, talk about when he got caught. 2016, Italian author Carlos de Ricol published a book about the heist called La Forge del Perde. They don't even talk about the specifics of it, but that was the book that got him in trouble. And they don't talk about the specifics of what it was, but it had to have something to do with that. What you're saying, the Interpol position.
What a fucking idiot, though. Either way, I mean, you gotta play certain cards close to your chest until you fucking die.
Well, and even then, just sometimes it's better for the mythology's sake to just to let everybody wonder forever.
Yeah. You know? I mean, so this, we can kind of talk about some of the other stuff. Like, it always bothered me that John Dillinger got caught the way that he did, because they shot him in front.
He's been talking about this the whole time we've been getting out of this.
They shot him in front of a fucking Chicago movie theater. Well, I always thought that it was his girlfriend's fault because it was her friend that ratted him out. Well, the feds would have never been involved except for the fact that Dillinger had stolen a car a few crimes back and crossed state lines with it. So that allowed the FBI to become involved because at the time
they didn't worry about bank robberies.
Right. There was nothing, that made them come in.
It was a state level issue because it would happen inside of that municipality.
Right. So he was the one that actually brought the feds in, and then his girlfriend's friend ratted him out and said, "We're going to be at the fucking movie theater on this night at this time." And when they came out, boom, boom, boom. But
the way you tell it, like the narrative, it really brings a big picture to my head. Like it really, they came out, boom, boom, boom.
Sorry.
Would they get a little boom, boom, boom? Is that,
No, they came out of the movie theater. I think he had one girl on one side and one on the other. And just because, again, the time frame, not everybody knew what he looked like. None of them knew what the girlfriend looked like. And not all of them knew what the friend looked like. So she said, "I'm going to be wearing a fucking orange dress or a pink dress or whatever," so that they could identify them when they came out of the theater. So not only did she rat him out and give the location, she fucking helped them target him too.
So did she have a bullet riddled body too?
No, they just shot him.
What a dirty rat!
You dirty rat. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I love criminals as a whole, and just I don't know.
That's not true. You love a certain variety of criminals.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't think you like child molesters.
No, I don't. But I don't consider them criminals. I consider them fucking dirty, rotten scumbags that deserve to have their entrails pulled out through their nostrils.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you on that, you know. But when you say that I mean, so we're getting back to the point about romanticizing, but it's an irony thing, right? Like, if we lived in a world where things really were fair, right, where there was a measure of competition, where people engaged in it, and the human race would grow and develop, like in a way that would inspire people to feel good about it, like they were a part of, you know. I mean, like the goofy shit that was happening in the '60s when they were trying to get to the moon, you know. And I understand perfectly well that not everybody in the United States would buy into that, and there were very good reasons for that. I'm not, you know, I don't want to get into that, but I mean, the spirit that ties to a concept like that, where you have a collective uh, intention, like collective social intention, but people are capable of acting like individuals in that context in relation to that collective social intention. But because of the fact that everything is so farcical as it relates to that notion, I mean, if you really loved criminals as much as you say you do, I
And I
mean,
would be a criminal.
well, you would be a certain type of criminal.
Yeah, maybe.
No, no, maybe. I grew up with you, bitch. This is a tough, but like honestly, so when I went, I watched this stupid top 10 banks rob thing in the 21st century, because a lot of the stuff that you were talking about was older stuff, right? I was like, well, let's see what's happened. You know, a lot of the stuff outside of the digital realm, right, stopped happening around 2007, 2008, 2009. And like, I can't help but feel that the Assange Snowden reality as it relates to, and just since we're talking about banks and money and blah 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 blah, mediums of exchange, right? Elizabeth Warren had been making this argument in the Senate recently about her concern for people gaining access to certain types of guns by being able to purchase them with cash, right? So there's this sort of like momentum that's starting to build to eliminate cash as a medium of exchange and to go to a straight digital currency. I cannot tell you how opposed I am to this concept. And I understand on some level that this is going to be something that's going to happen to some extent more and more and more as we continue to move into the digital age.
Dude, I've been paranoid about that shit forever. I'm not talking about an RFID card, but I mean like them fucking basically installing your bank account to
In
your
your finger,
fucking
yeah,
thumbprint,
yeah.
and
The mark
it's
of the
just
beast. Yeah, I got you.
everything.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
your phone, you know, where you live, all of that shit.
Hi, I'm Digital Brian.
Right.
Let me put my thumb on the thing, and you know everything that I bought for the last 7 years, and every porn thing that I've looked at, and you know, whatever it might be. I mean, but it's one thing. So like, at, you know, working in retail at the post office, I cannot tell you how many times people come up to me and they say, "Do you still take cash?" I'm like, "Are you serious?" And then I say, "We don't discriminate when it comes to legal tender at the post office." And I say that somewhat ironically in the context of what it is that we're talking about. Because at some point in time, these individuals, you know, I don't think that Elizabeth Warren is an absolute bastion of deviousness, but I do think that her disposition in relation to this is incredibly short-sighted, because there are certain things that they're nobody else's business. what I do with my money. It's kind of like the way that they originally crafted the big money bill that they were trying to do at the beginning. So there were two bills that were coming out at the beginning. Biden's presidency, they were both supposed to come through the 51 vote thing, where you don't have to get the full 60 in the Senate. Um, and one of them was like an economic rescue bill. Originally, it was set up at about $5 trillion. And they
That
kept
was the
scaling up,
one with
scaling
the
up, scaling up,
corporate
scaling.
tax and the
And
fucking all of that shit on it.
any exchange of money over $300 was required by law to be documented digitally. That was written into that second bill. And for all the things that people that love to suck the dick of FDR, and we need to have this new welfare state thing, and they wanted that original version of that bill to come out. That $300 stipulation, I did not like that. That is not something that I wanted to have in there. You can say whatever you want. If I don't, like you say, if you're telling me I don't care because I don't have anything to hide, well, fuck you, motherfucker. I mean,
dude, it's horrible. And for a long time, when I paid my share of the bills with the ex, she wanted me to give her cash. And the reason she wanted me to give her cash was because she didn't want anything to come up on the IRS or, whatever, because she didn't want it to look like she had more money than she had, which is fine to me. But she's one of those people that is always saying, well, it's not like I'm doing anything wrong. Let them fucking look. Well, she wanted to have that extra, $1,500 or whatever, so that she could go pay cash for something. And
but when they looked, it would have looked like she was evading something.
right. Or, well, especially with this $300 thing. I mean, because $300 these days isn't a fucking lot,
No,
dude.
that's tantamount to nearly every almost meaningful financial transaction you're committing to having to be on the
Fuck, a
books.
family of four, that's probably not even a weekly grocery shop.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's one trip to Costco for anybody, not just a family of four. So yeah, the $300. Well, that would take us down an entirely different road.
But it is this. It is this. I mean, it's compounding the same ultimate questions where you have these people that are. I mean, we're not going to be able to look inside those $13.33 million accounts. I mean, what they did, why it was that they deserved to be protected, despite the fact that they were in violation of, FDIC insurance and all of the various different things in relation to that. They get the bailout. I remember I was getting into a fight with somebody at the post office one day about and I know these are not perfect analogies, but there's still a conceptual thing at the root of it that's similar. I said, how much money? There was a corporate person at the post office. We were invaded for a couple of weeks one time, and there was a corporate person there, and I said, so it's a rhetorical question ultimately, but I'm just trying to poke and prod for a response. I said, how much money are we charging Amazon per package to deliver those packages for them? And she said, well, they're a private institution. We don't have the right to have that information. I said, but we're a public institution, ma'am, and we're doing that for them. They don't get to close the books on that. Absolutely.
Right.
I said, I'm not saying that I deserve all the information in relation to that, but it reminds me of this scene out of Legends of the Fall.
Who said that to you?
It was this corporate bitch from the post office. It just so there were like 10 or 12 of them that were running around, and she kept bugging me about some shit. So I was like, okay, if you want to fuck with me, then I promise you I'm gonna come over the top and fucking smack you in your head, lady. So I started asking her questions like that. But it reminds me of Legends of the Fall, where they come looking for. You ever watch that movie? They come looking for Decker with the police officer guy, and but they're with the Irish guys that are smuggling liquor all the time, and we're looking for this guy Decker, and he says, well, what do you have to do with this, sheriff? And the Irish, well, that's a private matter, and he says, but that's a public office that you're filling, and that's exactly the same thing that I wanted to say, and that's when I say the trying to drive the public-private dynamic forward, that dialectic forward. Fuck you, bitch. I have the right to know some of that stuff because we don't just get to bargain these positions and give them whatever the fuck they want because they're private and we're subject to their whims because we're cash poor and we need access to that. There are certain things that should absolutely be a matter of public record when it comes to those questions.
You can probably find some of it online, but it'd be a big figure. Like it would say,
super diluted, yeah.
$12.7 billion paid to the U.S. Post Office
in installments of $3 billion per year over the course of 4 years or something like that. But that doesn't,
Right.
Then I have to literally go in and calculate the number of, and not only that, because you have to look at the types of packages that they're giving us because they give us all these mirrors that weigh 70 pounds and fucking ultimately things that when they were handing them off to their Amazon drivers, they were hurting their backs and having to deal with claims in the rears with regards to that, having to deal with them through the people that they were farming the stuff out to, through contractual positions. So the number of ways in which, I promise you one. If you were to bring one of those packages in, we might be getting paid $4.83 to deliver. If you were to pay for the postage, first of all, some of them wouldn't even qualify because they violate our rules. But if it was a 70-pound package that went from New York to Denver, that's a $150 package, not a $4 package.
So this is corporate and state being in bed together, and it's kind of on the same page, but so Amazon is the only company I can think of that has enough juice, because before Amazon had their own drivers, they fucking made the post office open up and do deliveries on Sunday.
We were literally within like months of switching to 5-day delivery. We were about to go to Saturdays. It was in Congress. They were voting on it. They were talking about it. We were about to go to 5 days. The Amazon deal got signed, and like that October, like we started delivering on Sunday right before Christmas, of course. So yeah.
I mean that's a lot of fucking juice, dude.
And I mean, if you put that in I know we're going off on a super huge tangent here, but you put that in the context of the fact that we were having a pre-fund, which made it look like we weren't financially solvent. So we would generally be running like a deficit of $5 billion a year, but we were paying $5 billion into that fund. So like I'm not going to say that there weren't instances that we would have been running in the red, but there were instances that we were in the black as well. So if you look at it, it would have been much closer. So it was cooking the books to make it look like the post office was incapable of being solvent. While we're being held to a certain standard, there is no other governmental institution that was functioning the way we were in that sort of quasi, on our own sort of space. We're generating our own revenue kind of space, and we're supposed to be out on our own space on one level, and then being expected to pre-fund the retirement 75 years in advance. And look, you can tell me that this year, yeah, so that fucking bill went through, right? Great, good for the fucking bill, right? That doesn't change the fact that it created the conditions to where there was a rhetorical disposition that the post office needed access to more money, so we were forced to sign these contracts with them to where we literally changed the entire structure of the production process, which is exactly what you just implied. We were literally about to go to 5 days. I'm not making a normative argument about whether or not that should have happened or not happened. It was just an ontological fact. It was in Congress. They were about to vote for that to happen, and that stopped. And we were not only not going to 5 days, we stayed at 7, and it was based on a false cooking of the books. So, I mean, the juice was, and I cannot help but feel that. I mean, I'm not saying that like when you look backwards, you could say, well, that was a big plan. I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but there were some motherfuckers that were trying to make money out of the post office and figure out the best way to do it, and they certainly did. And then UPS said, yeah, we don't need to take over the entire package industry. As a matter of fact, during Christmas time, we can push all these extra costs off onto the post office. We can maintain our solvency. We just pay them X amount of dollars in the meantime. And we continue to maintain our relative level of profitability because we have the same amount of drivers. We have the same amount of packages. We've already got our calculus for how our production standards need to exist at a certain level to be profitable. We just do that to maintain where we hit these differential spaces to where you have to push these surplus packages into a different direction. I mean, you get what I'm saying. And so ultimately, the post office is one of those institutions that exists to subsidize private industry in a very clear way. And like the thing that, and just as an ancillary subject in relation to it, when it comes to the postal banking thing, so there's all that cash sitting there still right now. I don't know what the plan is with that money, but it's like 120, $130 billion or something like that from the money that we paid into the pre-funding. Like the one thing that I'm scared about is if we create a postal banking space, somebody hedging, and just stripping that $120 billion right out of the post office, and that's just me being paranoid based on seeing the things that I got nothing to back up a belief or how or why that would happen, but it's there, and I can't help based on the way that they did all this other shit. Why wouldn't they take a shot at that too? Because that's money that's there. It's money there to be fucking robbed. Because who's robbing who? Banks robbing banks, robbing banks, robbing banks.
Well, we initially started talking about banks, but a lot of these guys that we were talking about, the Dillingers and Barkers and all of those guys, they were robbing like gas stations and grocery stores too. But again, when you're out in these rural areas, a lot of times the general store is the post office. And it's not that there's a delivery person. I mean, a postal truck comes up.
The Jolly Store in Deer Trail was the post office.
And gives the mail, and that's put into a box on a wall somewhere, and somebody comes in with the key and grabs their mail however often they want. Sure. A lot of times there's old people sitting out front and they're drinking soda and fucking smoking cigarettes, and they hang out there because that's the place in Deer Trail.
Yeah. It's you got a church and you got a post office. It's social existence.
Yeah.
And the store. Yeah. But it's all the same thing.
So post offices were being robbed also. Not necessarily just because it was attached to a grocery store or a general store, but they were being robbed. And I don't know if this is why it started happening or not, but you can still go into post offices now and see wanted posters for people that were robbing banks.
I haven't seen one for years. They used to, but I'm not in my post office.
They don't have them there anymore.
I've been on the window since November 2011. I've never seen one. I seen them when I was a kid, but I haven't seen one at Highlands Ranch when I walked in there.
Okay.
We didn't have one down at 20th and Curtis, and that was the center of the.
Okay, well maybe they started pulling them down, but I swear I saw one. Maybe it was Lakewood, Maine, Inglewood.
You know what I think? I think that your concept
hallucinating
is all fucked up.
It could be. Yeah. What year am I in? But anyway, that might be one of the ways that they stayed in connection from city to city, because at one time they were putting wanted posters in the post office. And I think that they did it because people went to the post office to get their mail, and so they knew that it would be seen.
It was the site, yeah, where people would come. Yeah. I think that's absolutely. It was the site of civic space. I mean, I think that's a fact. I don't think that's wrong at all. Everybody went to the post office. Everybody went to the store, the town, whatever that town. Yes, that's a fact.
Yeah.
Everybody saw, Dillinger's picture up on the wall.
I know that motherfucker. I just saw him at the movie theater.
He had these two girls off his arm, but he caught a couple of bullets.
He was getting shot.
That bitch was a snitch.
The concept of bank robbery, I understand. Of course, if you do rob a bank and get caught, I think, it's like a 20-year minimum sentence or something like that. I don't understand people that risk long-term prison sentences for $300 robbing the local gas station. We can't rob trains anymore. Maybe you could rob a train. I don't fucking know, but I don't think they carry the money that they used to.
You don't. I mean, because back then we were talking, they'd have the Wells Fargo guys or the what do you call them? The Pinkertons, yeah.
Yeah.
Because money that's the only way that you'd be moving concrete money. That's the only way you'd be moving concrete jewels.
Well, and they
mail.
moved it around like ore, because a mine would fucking send their ore. Like if you were in, say, Deadwood, they would send it to Denver.
To get smelted or something, or what?
I think to convert it to cash so that you can put it in a bank or whatever, because I mean those smaller areas where mines were didn't necessarily have a bank, or if they did have a bank, it might not have the currency that you wanted. So, you'd send it to a larger city. But
I don't think I'd be trusting anybody with my own.
They use stagecoaches too, I guess, which is another.
They used to rob stagecoaches.
Yeah.
When you get really romantic about it, you love the Old West. That's the time period that you would like to go to.
If I picked a time, I've always said that that's where I would go.
So that you could have really, really good teeth.
Fuck, I have really good teeth now.
No matter what, dude. Back then, that was some champion time. That was there was this stupid ass fucking show that Jimmy used to watch, where I'm not even gonna say what the show is because of how bad it was. But these guys go back in time and they're going into the bar and there's a brothel in there, and he's like, "This is Mary Jean. She's my best girl," and she smiles and she's got like 4 teeth. She's almost gummer prepared.
I always think, when you just now said that, I always think of that time me and your dipshit brother went down to Durango.
You went to Durango with Dan?
Yeah. And we ended up at this bar, and I know, unless they had just done it to look like it used to be a brothel, but Durango's an old mining town, all of this stuff, so that it's a standalone building. You can tell it's old as shit, but you walk in and it's one of the 2-floor buildings, and they've got it all closed off upstairs, but there was this big fucking picture. It had to be, I don't know, at least 5 by 5 of this woman who wasn't quite naked, but naked enough, and I'm pretty sure that it would have been the madam at the time. So I don't know, 80% sure that it had been a brothel at one time, but that could just be me romanticizing shit, saying, okay, well, this was a brothel.
Was she giving a full 4-tooth smile? I mean,
she had teeth. But yeah, I would definitely go back in time, and that would be the frame that I would choose, is the Old West.
I don't romanticize anything anymore. I like hot showers. I want hot showers from here until the end of time. And as soon as they're gone, then I'm gonna disappear from the face of the earth.
The shower would be tough. Having to go outside, especially like in Colorado in the wintertime, you wake up in the middle of the night and have to take a shit, and you gotta go outside and it's fucking snowing and it's dark, and
motherfucker, you don't even have toilet paper.
That's true.
I mean, that shit, no pun intended, that shit sucks. I was watching Empire of the Sun the other day.
When was toilet paper invented?
I don't know. That's a good. We'll need, look up for the. So I was watching Empire of the Sun the other day, and I love that movie. Christian Bale plays the little kid in that movie. You know that?
I've never seen that movie.
Oh, you gotta watch that movie. But all these British people who lived in Shanghai area where he was from, not Hong Kong, but Shanghai. they end up in this place where they're using all these like the Japanese are using all these Chinese to build the runway during the runway during the World War II, but they have all the British in this internment camp, right? And there's a Japanese fellow that's the head of the place, and every now and again they have the instance where they give them the bath with the hot water and somebody's pouring it over the top of their head. Like every time I see like a scene like that from whether it's like Last Samurai or from some Western fucking where somebody's taking a bath in a fucking dirty old fucking bathtub or some shit like that, I just can't help but think, man, like what a luxury it was during that time period to have some motherfucker standing behind you with hot water pouring it over your head, and that was like the best. So
No, I know I would have a hard time not doing the shower thing, even though I think in the old west you could get a hot bath, but I quit taking baths when I was like fucking 8, and now I've got a serious problem with fucking just sitting there in my own fucking filth.
Well, but back then that was it.
Right. No, I understand that.
A shower head. What the fuck are you
some of it
talking
is
about?
better. And I've also washed my hair in like a mountain stream in like May with the melt off.
Yeah, that's chilly.
That's some cold shit. So in the 14th century, perfumed paper sheets were manufactured for the Hongwu dynasty, but only the royal family and the imperial court had access to them.
What did they make? What kind of, so was it like rice paper? Or?
It just says perfume paper sheets. Around the same time, people in Europe used rags to clean up after a trip to the loo. First mention of toilet paper appeared in Europe in the 16th century in a text by Rabelais. Spoiler alert, he was not a fan, probably because most people in Europe were using bidets. In North America, throughout the 1700s, people were still wiping with whatever they had on hand.
Wait. If they were using, how were they pumping the stream of water up your ass then?
I don't know, maybe they had a fucking hand pump on the side of the toilet. I don't.
And this Australian fella comes through and goes, "It's for washing your backside, right?"
Fuck. No. Oh, okay. In North America, throughout the 1700s, people were still wiping with whatever they had on hand. Most common were things like corn cobs, which I've heard. This one I've never heard before, and I'm trying to figure out how the fuck that would work, but it says seashells.
The 3 seashells, dude.
Yeah,
that's what they were talking about.
That's Demolition Man.
That was what they were talking about in Demolition Man then. That was what they were referring to. That's what the 3 seashells...
How the fuck can you... Anyway.
It doesn't matter. The point is they referred to the 3 seashells because some motherfucker was like, let's come up with something hilarious about wiping the ass in the future. And they're like, dude, how did they wipe in 1700s? They used seashells to wipe their asses. They're literally doing exactly what you're doing right now.
So in 1857, a New Yorker patented toilet paper. He called it medicated paper for the water closet. And he printed his name on every sheet.
And we thought that we made really long, stupid fucking names for things, like post-traumatic stress disorder. What was the name of it again?
Medicated paper for the water closet.
I need to go to the store and pick up some medicated paper for the water closet.
Dude, okay, so yeah, I mean, but
that was never in a Mark Twain book.
No, it wasn't. And I don't know, like in an outhouse, I can't imagine yelling inside, "Hey, honey, we're out of medicated paper in the water closet.
You got a corn cob? Get me the 3 seashells."
not much for seashells in Colorado.
What in the fuck is that though? I mean, seriously, that's hilarious though that was said because that I just can't imagine. I mean, that's like a surefire way to fucking have like. I mean, you're gonna pop 7 hemorrhoids in a minute, you know.
Dude, I guess, yeah, I mean,
And that's why the banking institutions need to stop fucking us over. Because at some point in time, we're going to run out of toilet paper. We're going to be stuck with seashells. People are going to have horrible problems with hemorrhoids. And they're going to turn into bank robbers because of that, because they need to get better toilet paper.
that's right. Because it all is about necessity.
It is, yeah. It's the mother of invention, dude.
I need some fucking medicated paper for the water closet. It's time to rob that bank, bitch. Well, and depending on how the economy actually went, you probably could have used some of those fucking Southern notes as toilet paper. Or the Northern notes.
That's like too papery paper. I mean, to get like a paper cut on your taint. I mean, that's that could really turn out bad, especially if you end up having to get up on the horse and you got a really sweaty afternoon. You got an infected taint all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's hard to rob a bank with an infected taint. What's wrong? Saddle sores? No. Fucking Southern note tore my ass.
Are you tainted?
Always, dude. Toward the end of the second half, we fucking just spin out of control. Out of control.
This is all right though. This is funny.
Well, so regardless of whether or not you could shoot people or rob banks, where would you go in the timeline?
I mean, what do I want to see? I mean, from what time period? To be honest with you,
I don't fucking know. That's why I asked you.
I don't want to live in any other time period, but I would like to go back and look at England when Shakespeare was around during the Renaissance, like because when I see like what we're lacking right now, it's the general ability to like bring that spirit together to become something else, to have that brave new world moment, and I know like when I look back at it, I'm doing the same thing that you're doing. I mean, I'm totally fucking romanticizing it, but we really need something to propel us through. Like one of the things that I was thinking about when I was going through Groovetopia was, so one of the things that's helped China to develop so much over the course of the last 130 years is Sun Yat-sen. Like he's like, motherfuckers, you got to learn how to read. It can't just be the fucking rich motherfuckers that can read. Everybody needs to have a certain measure of intelligence. So Madam Sen, like his wife, like they really we went to a really cool mausoleum from which I think it's actually his, like they have his body there too. There's like a big Buddhist monastery, and there's this huge where you go and there's a big statue of him up at the top of it. But I honestly think that our general inability to understand abstractions, so like the way that the banks play economic games with us or against us, is that we socially, like writ large, don't have the ability to make sense of it really quick. We need like a Sun Yat-sen abstraction / economics moment where like we're intelligent enough to see what a game is when somebody's running it against us, and to be able to create a counter move against it immediately, so that it isn't like there's like at the end of obviously it'll come up again tomorrow because I'm obsessed with the movie Big Short, and when we're talking about these things, The Big Short's always going.
What movie?
The Big Short.
I've never heard of that
You're
before.
such a dick, dude.
Have you mentioned that at any previous time?
Only about like 22% of the episodes do I bring up the movie Big Short. But there's already, so like the synthetic CDOs, there was already a new version of synthetic CDOs that came out in like 2014, like immediately after that. So um, there's already these, the other, what that means is there's economic instruments that are being passed on to regular people as good economic tools of making money that are going to strip money away from normal people, and we're just going to get fucked again.
They're gonna blow shit up.
Yeah. So the third to last chapter, he talks about the concept of bubbles as sort of like a compulsive thing. This is where Taibbi, as good as he is with the putting together the scam, like he doesn't have the paradigm, right? This is why, I mean, I know you got to get into Marx when it comes to this, because of the way that Marx talks about crisis. And the way that crisis has become institutionalized as a way of continually stripping money from not just middle and lower class, but certain demographics at the top as well. I mean, there are people that got totally fucking played out of the fucking the banking crisis. There were specific banks that benefited tremendously from it, and then there were other people that just got, they're like, you didn't pay to play right, you didn't do this right, so we're gonna fuck you over, and you can eat shit for the rest of your lives. I mean, but still, the vast majority of people that get fucked over by it is all of us, the royal proletariat, us, the plebes, the
nobody's ever answered that question. Who is more of a plebe?
That's because
only 13 people listened,
yeah,
and I didn't really care.
Yeah, they're like, what are they even talking about? We don't even know who you motherfuckers are. But I think
what's a plebe?
I think without a general understanding of how these things are, how the game is being run, the process will continue to repeat itself, and these bubbles, these crises will continue to be structured. We'll get worried. We'll be afraid that we'll lose the 3 bits of rice that we have to eat every day. And
well, during the break, you and I were talking, and I said, I am still just completely baffled by the way the state doesn't seem to care. And I'm not saying, oh, we care about you, but I'm talking about the grand scheme of things all the way through, which is, if we were better educated on finance, on reading, on all of this stuff, to where people could get better jobs and do all of this stuff, then tax bases go higher and education gets better, and it creates this self-perpetuating cycle where money is constantly being cycled through, and not do a half a revolution and things get fucked, and then somebody's got to come up with some fucking stupid idea to help it go another fucking quarter of a turn to where it slightly improves. If we could improve everything from the ground up, then the state would continually make money off of the tax base. And then I said, well, the problem is that, politicians aren't looking at this in long term. They're looking at it in what's good for me right now.
Very, very short term. Yeah. The next quarterly.
Right. Yeah. And some of these politicians are going to be dead in fucking 10 years. So they don't give a shit what's going to happen 10 years from now.
Shit. Dead in 10 years. Dianne Feinstein, they literally, like, Rokana sent this tweet out because she's got dementia, right? And she's had dementia since she started her last Senate term. Somehow she still got fucking elected on her 14th fucking Senate term.
Right. That's a positive fucking vibe coming from the voters.
Yeah, you gotta love it. So Rokana says, this bitch can't even fucking serve her role, and Rokana would never say this. He's a pretty nice guy. I mean, he's too tied to Silicon Valley, so he's got to get his tongue out of the fucking ass of the
Zuckerberg.
Yeah, all of that whole demographic for all intents and purposes. But having said that, he said this thing. He said because she said something. She's like the number 2 person on the Judiciary Committee, and without her having sitting on it, all of Biden's appointees are not able to get um, confirmed as judges. So her dementia and their commitment to her as a senator, like, which is just the most obnoxious bunch of bullshit in the history of the fucking universe, is a pretty clear example of how these motherfuckers don't give a fuck about improving anything. They don't give a. I mean, like you said, like just the next quarter, they're making their fucking money. I mean, she is literally incapable of functioning as a human being, much less being an active senator in the U.S. Senate.
And really, that's the way corporate America thinks too. And I'm not saying shady, not shady, but I mean, really, they look at, month over month growth, quarter over quarter growth, year over year growth. But generally speaking, when you're talking year over year, they're forecasting out 5 years. Nothing is long term. So if we continue to look at everything in fucking quarterly cycles and 5 year cycles at the most, when is anything ever going to get better?
Janae's got a really nice couple of papers on this. Yeah, because it's the fallacy of progress. I mean, because there is no progress in a space like that, and it's intentionally structurally like created that way because it's rooted in a very specific variety of capitalist time that doesn't ever want to improve. I mean, the image that you put forward where like you create a system that is fair, honest, self-perpetuating, that it tries to resolve its own contradictions through us working as individuals and as part of a common good, I mean, yeah, that to have that in existence, like in a meaningful way, like it's curious how like if we ever get out of this cesspool that we're in right now, the way that we fantasize, the way that people that are libertarians fantasize about capitalism, and the way that anarchists and good communists fantasize about a future, it actually, the horseshoe should come right back around together to where the concept of the state as an institution to suppress people disappears because the state exists through all of the people acting in that sort of like collective. It would turn into something like Star Trek. And the only problem with the Star Trek disposition is this rhetorical disposition. And this is where I really agree with the point that you made earlier. Money is not evil. Money is a tool of abstraction. It allows us to calculate things. It allows us to understand certain abstract expressions of value. This is not a bad thing. This is something that we could actually utilize to certain ends to where maybe something else could be possible. But as long as the way that we construct time horizons is so integral to like we have to have 100-year plan. We have to have 1,000-year plan. Isaac Asimov in Foundation. That was like sort of one of the main points that he suggests that you can actually map things out, and whether or not that's possible is obviously not even contextually appropriate given the context right now because everybody that's doing it, the only 1,000-year mapping that Blackstone is doing is making sure that they're going to be the demagogues for the next. I was talking to somebody earlier. American Gods.
Yeah.
Was there like a weird notion of like banking or money in the manifestation of American Gods?
So I'm trying to think because
I know this is more of a tomorrow conversation, but
right. I'll have to think about that one because the American Gods. So basically, there were all of the former gods and
from Greek, Roman, like the connection of both of them ultimately.
The older ones, regardless, Greek, Roman. Jesus was in there.
Really?
Yeah, there were. So it was the older. We worship you. Gods, okay. Whether we're sacrificing something to you or whatever. Then there were the new gods, which were media, internet.
Wouldn't money? I mean, doesn't that seem like it would make sense?
I think money may have been there, but I can't remember for sure. And I only saw, I think, 1.5. And I think there may have been a total of 3 seasons, but it may have only been 2. Um, but it was this big, like, I mean, it was a battle.
Yeah, between the old gods and the new.
Yeah. I'll have we'll circle back around to it because I think the money thing may have been there, but
it just seems like it would be one of those things through the current iteration of what we worship. I mean, what else in the world do people worship more than the power that you have the capability of tapping into if you have Scratch?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that one more and maybe watch a couple episodes if I can and see, because it might be on Prime. And it was a pretty decent show.
I watched the first 4 or 5 episodes, but I got you get sidetracked. So
yeah. So just toward the end there, I was thinking of a way to wrap this up. So, and of course, I want your input, but I would say
you don't want my input.
I don't want everyone to go out and rob a bank tomorrow because
I hate that we have to make these stupid fucking disclaimers.
This isn't a disclaimer. I'm actually giving advice on how to truly fuck over the banks and the government, possibly ourselves, but you won't go to jail for it. So tomorrow, go and withdraw all your fucking money from the bank and stuff it in a mattress and encourage all of your friends and relatives to do the same fucking thing. I want thousands, nay, millions of people to do the same thing.
Nay, millions. Bank run dry.
And see how fucking happy they are after we do that. Anyway, that was just an idea.
Stuff it in a mattress. Nay, thousands. Nay, millions. Who the fuck says nay, dude? Are you a fucking horse? You should have said nay.
Nay, Wilbur.
Or maybe it was an homage to my desire to go to the Shakespearean time period.
No,
No,
I just was.
I hit a corn cob up, like I'm wiping my ass.
Nay, that was a seashell. Okay, so what's your fucking bright idea if you don't think that everybody should withdraw their money?
No, I mean, look, like I said, there's 2 things that I sort of suggested inside of that, but obviously I'm a pretty process-oriented person. Like a lot of this has to do with our being able to understand what's happening around us. So the Sun Yat-sen sort of like idea of being able to read the moment economically, right? So you apply that concept to like not allowing yourself to be duped, right? That would be one thing. And like I said, like even when I give the example of supporting postal banking, like I even say that with like an incredible amount of reservations because I get nervous that somebody would try to use that as a way of getting it. But we need to understand that the rhetorical space between public and private is bullshit. We don't have, again, a framework for understanding the way that that's working. We need to drive it forward. We need to start to create something like a public space again. And that doesn't mean that you, first of all, and this is, now I'm going into too much stuff, but the private is not the opposite of public. That is a fallacy. Like we need to start to understand some of these things in a more complicated way. We are not subjects by ourselves. Your subjectivity connects to other people. Blah 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 blah. Philosophy. Blah 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 blah. We need to understand what's happening economically, and we need to understand that the perceived division between public and private is a sham. So we need to start looking at those questions in a little bit more sophisticated way. That's all.
All right, people. On the next couple of episodes, we are going to be talking about entertainment that has to do with bank robbery or, I guess, just robbery.
I'll let you take one guess what one of the movies I'm going to talk about is.
Is it The Big Short?
I don't want to tell him yet.
Oh, okay.
It's the big.
Sorry, I was given a guess.
You're messing with my big reveal.
So we will, I think I'm going to try to watch Bonnie and Clyde because I've never watched that movie with Warren Beatty and, is it Faye Dunaway? I don't know. It was done in like 1967.
That was like him as a pup too. Huh?
He was pretty young. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to try to watch that, but we're going to talk about, a lot of different movies. There's a lot of really cool fucking robbery movies.
Yeah, we were talking about In Time earlier, Heat, there's all kinds of them.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that kind of shit, as well as books, because what's his name? And I can't remember the author's name, but he's the one that did the books, which, The Getaway. He did
the Getaway. That's almost as bad as me and Big Short, dude.
But Casey Affleck was in the movie. He was like a fucking sheriff who had murdered somebody.
Oh, that's the fucking weird movie. That's the killing one, the one with Jim Thompson. That's Jim Thompson.
Jim Thompson. Okay, so Jim Thompson, he wrote several really cool crime books.
The Primitive. I forgot about that. I should go look back at that.
So we'll talk about some of that stuff. Anyway, we'll talk to you soon. Have a good night.
Adios.
Day, whatever the fuck it is where you are.
Yeah.
Talk to you later.
Since we have people that listen in the Philippines and India.
Yeah.
We're global, baby.